The rain was still falling when the billionaire heard a scream from his mother's room. He rushed down the hallway, his shoes splashing on the marble floor, and what he saw froze him in place. His own fiancée stood over his weak mother, her voice sharp with hate, while the black maid knelt beside the old woman crying for help. In that single moment, love, trust, and loyalty broke apart, and what happened next would change every life inside that mansion forever. Hours earlier, everything inside the Henderson mansion had seemed peaceful. The sun had been shining through the wide glass windows, and birds could be heard outside the garden. Angela Brown, the maid, had been up since dawn, moving quietly from room to room. She was wiping the table in the living room, humming softly to herself, when Mrs. Martha Henderson called her from upstairs. Angela placed the cleaning cloth down and hurried up, her steps careful on the stairs. Mrs. Henderson had grown weaker these past months, her hands trembling whenever she tried to lift a cup. Angela had come to care for her deeply, almost like her own mother. She entered the room and smiled gently. "Good morning, ma'am. Did you sleep well?" Mrs. Henderson's eyes softened. "You always ask that, Angela," she said in a faint voice. "You treat me better than my own family sometimes." Angela smiled but said nothing. She helped the old woman sit up and placed a pillow behind her back. The morning light rested softly on both of them, making the room glow. On the bedside table stood framed photos of her son Ryan Henderson, the billionaire known all over Atlanta for his real estate empire, and his fiancée, Vanessa Cole, a woman with beauty that caught everyone's attention but eyes that rarely showed warmth. Angela had never felt comfortable around Vanessa. She spoke to her with a tone that felt cold, as if her words were wrapped in sugar but her heart carried ice. Yet, Angela kept her head down, doing her job the best she could. That morning, Ryan had left early for a meeting downtown, and the mansion was unusually quiet. Angela made breakfast for Mrs. Henderson and fed her small spoonfuls, patient and gentle. "You remind me of my late sister," the old woman said, smiling weakly. "You have the same heart." Angela's eyes grew moist. She whispered, "Thank you, ma'am. I only want you to be happy." After breakfast, Angela changed the bedsheets, opened the curtains, and stepped out to the balcony to shake off the dust from a blanket. The air smelled fresh from the earlier rain. Far in the garden, the gardeners were trimming the bushes, and the sound of distant thunder rolled quietly in the sky. It was then that Vanessa's car drove through the gates. Angela noticed the shiny red car gliding up the driveway. Her chest tightened a little. She didn't know why, but every time Vanessa arrived, the air inside the house seemed to change. Moments later, the door opened with the sound of high heels clicking against the marble floor. Vanessa's voice carried up the staircase, cool and commanding. "Angela, where's Mrs. Henderson?" Angela quickly folded the blanket and answered, "She's in her room, ma'am, resting after breakfast." Vanessa didn't reply. She walked past Angela without a glance, her perfume strong and heavy. Angela stood still for a moment, then went downstairs to continue cleaning. Inside the bedroom, Vanessa's smile disappeared the moment she saw Mrs. Henderson sitting up with a cup of tea. "You've been talking to her again, haven't you?" Mrs. Henderson asked softly. Vanessa's tone turned sharp. "I don't need your approval for anything, Martha. You forget whose name will soon be on everything here." Mrs. Henderson's hands trembled as she tried to speak. "You may marry my son, Vanessa, but you will never control his heart with lies and cruelty." Something inside Vanessa snapped. Her face hardened, and she grabbed the cup from the table, slamming it down so hard that tea splashed on the bedsheets. "Don't you dare speak to me like that!" she hissed. Angela, who had been in the hallway dusting the frames, heard the commotion. Her heart jumped. She rushed into the room, eyes widening as she saw Vanessa standing over the weak woman, her hand raised. "Ma'am, please stop," Angela cried, stepping between them. Vanessa turned on her, her eyes burning with rage. "Stay out of this. You're just a maid." Mrs. Henderson coughed violently, the shock shaking her frail body. Angela caught her before she fell, wrapping her arms around her to keep her safe. "Please, don't do this. She's not well," Angela pleaded. But Vanessa shoved Angela hard, her voice rising. "Get your hands off her. You don't tell me what to do in this house." Angela's knees hit the edge of the table, but she didn't fight back. She looked at Vanessa with tears filling her eyes. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "You're hurting someone who has only ever loved you." Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway. Ryan had returned early because his meeting got canceled. He pushed open the door, and the sight before him made his breath stop. His fiancée, standing red-faced, his mother shaking and pale, and the maid holding her protectively. For a second, no one spoke. The rain outside grew louder, tapping against the window. "Ryan," Vanessa said quickly, her voice trembling but her eyes cold. "I caught her yelling at your mother. She was rough with her. I had to stop it." Angela gasped. "That's not true, sir. Please, I would never." Ryan raised a hand, his face pale with shock. "Enough!" he shouted. "Not another word!" Angela's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but his eyes were filled with disbelief. Vanessa moved closer to him, pretending to cry. "She attacked her, Ryan. I swear she did." Ryan looked at his mother, but she was too weak to speak. The silence in the room felt heavy, broken only by the sound of Angela's quiet sobs. "Pack your things," Ryan said finally, his voice cold and tired. "You're done here." Angela froze. Her heart sank. "Sir, please, I didn't." "Go," he said softly, turning away. Angela slowly rose, tears rolling down her cheeks. She looked once more at the trembling old woman, then at Ryan, hoping he would look at her and see the truth. But he didn't. As she walked out into the rain with her small bag, lightning flashed across the sky. Inside the mansion, Vanessa wrapped her arms around Ryan, pretending to comfort him, while the real victim lay broken in her bed. Outside, Angela whispered through her tears, "God knows the truth, and one day, so will he." And that was how the storm truly began. The rain didn't stop that night. It poured without rest, as if the sky itself was mourning the injustice that had just happened. Angela walked slowly down the quiet streets of Atlanta, her small bag pressed close to her chest, her clothes damp from the storm. Each step felt heavy, not because of the water or the cold, but because of the pain sitting deep in her heart. She had done nothing wrong, yet she was treated like a criminal. She reached a small roadside motel, one of those old places with flickering lights and cracked walls. The man at the counter looked at her without interest. "One night?" he asked. Angela nodded and paid with the few bills she had. Inside the room, the air smelled of dust and rain, the bed creaked, and the curtain barely hung on the rod. She sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the tiny window, listening to thunder echo through the night. In her hands, she held a silver hairpin, the same one Mrs. Henderson had given her weeks ago. "For luck," the old woman had said, smiling weakly as Angela fixed her pillow. Angela looked at it now, her tears dropping on the metal. "If you only knew what she did to you," she whispered. At that same moment, inside the Henderson mansion, Ryan sat in his study with his hands covering his face. Vanessa stood behind him, pretending to comfort him, her voice soft and sweet. "You did the right thing, baby," she said, rubbing his shoulders gently. "That girl could have hurt your mother." Ryan nodded slowly but didn't answer. His mind replayed the scene over and over, his mother's fear, the maid's tears, Vanessa's trembling voice. Something didn't feel right, but he was too tired to think. "I just need rest," he murmured. "Of course," Vanessa replied quickly, kissing his cheek. "I'll check on your mother." But when she entered Martha's room, her kindness vanished like smoke. The old woman was lying still, her breathing shallow, her eyes open but weak. "You won't say a word," Vanessa whispered coldly, bending close. "If you tell him what happened, I'll make sure he sends you away somewhere he'll never find you. Do you understand?" Martha didn't answer, but her eyes filled with tears. Meanwhile, in her motel room, Angela couldn't sleep. Her mind was restless. Every sound outside, a car passing, a door slamming, made her jump. She kept seeing the moment Ryan turned away, his face full of disbelief. She kept hearing Vanessa's angry voice. Her lies. she whispered into the darkness. Why do people like her always win? Her phone buzzed on the table. It was Linda Carter, the older housekeeper from the mansion. Angela hesitated before answering. Angela, it's me, Linda said softly. I just heard what happened. Is it true? Angela swallowed hard. It's true. She said I hurt Mrs. Henderson, and he believed her. Linda sighed. Oh dear. I knew something like this would happen. That woman's heart is made of stone. She paused, lowering her voice. Listen, I saw something. Before you left, the security light in the hallway blinked. That means the camera was recording. There might be proof. Angela sat up straight. You mean the cameras near Mrs. Henderson's room? Yes, Linda said quickly. The small one by the balcony door. But be careful, Vanessa controls everything now. If she finds out I told you, she'll come after me too. Angela felt a spark of hope deep in her chest. Thank you, Linda. Maybe the truth will come out one day. After the call, Angela opened her small bag to fold her uniform, but something fell to the floor, a small black memory card. She frowned, picking it up carefully. It must have slipped into her pocket while she was cleaning the nightstand earlier that day. She stared at it for a long moment, her heart beating fast. Could it be from the bedside camera Mrs. Henderson always kept on? She searched her phone for a card slot, but it didn't fit. Then she remembered the old laptop she carried around to check emails from her cousin. With trembling hands, she inserted the card. For a moment, the screen stayed black. Then a video opened. The image was blurry, but clear enough to see Vanessa standing near the bed, shouting. Then, Angela appeared, rushing to protect Mrs. Henderson. Angela's eyes widened as she watched herself being shoved, the teacup falling, the old woman trembling. Every second of the truth was there. Her hands shook. Oh, thank God, she whispered, covering her mouth. Thank you, Lord, the truth is here. She wanted to run back, to show Ryan right away, but she knew it wasn't safe. Vanessa would do anything to silence her. She looked at the video again and then made a choice. She took out a small envelope, placed the memory card inside, and wrote on it, "For Mr. Ryan Henderson, please watch this before you judge again." The next morning, Angela mailed it quietly before returning to her motel. Inside the mansion, Linda found Martha crying softly. Angela didn't do it, Martha whispered, her voice thin like air. Vanessa hurt me, she lied. Linda squeezed her hand. Don't worry, ma'am. The truth always finds a way. Later that afternoon, Ryan sat in his office again, tired and distracted. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray. His assistant walked in, holding a small brown envelope. This came for you, sir. No return name. Ryan frowned. Leave it on the desk. After the assistant left, he opened it. Inside was the tiny memory card and a folded note. His eyes moved over the words, then back to the card. He hesitated for a long moment, then inserted it into his computer. At first, the screen was black. Then sound filled the room, his mother's weak voice. Vanessa's anger, Angela's plea. He froze. He leaned closer, watching Vanessa shove the maid, watching Angela defend his mother, hearing every cruel word Vanessa had said. His breath caught. No, he whispered, his voice breaking. What have I done? He paused the video and sat back, his eyes wet with shame. For the first time, he realized he had destroyed the only person who truly cared for his mother. He pressed play again, watching till the end. When the screen went dark, he sat in silence for a long time. The sound of the rain returned outside, light and steady, like tears falling from heaven. Ryan stood slowly, picked up his phone, and dialed a number he hadn't called in years, the local police chief. I need to report something, he said quietly, and I need help finding someone named Angela Brown. And far away, in her small motel room, Angela looked out the window at the rising sun. She didn't know that the truth was finally on its way back to her. Days passed slowly, each one heavier than the last. Angela stayed in the small motel, cleaning rooms in exchange for food, while waiting to hear what would happen next. She had mailed the video with trembling hope, but no reply came. Each morning, she walked to the post office, checking for a letter that never arrived. Each night, she sat by the window, wondering if Ryan had seen it or if Vanessa had destroyed it. Her heart ached for Mrs. Henderson. She imagined the old woman lying weak and afraid in that cold mansion with no one to protect her. "Sometimes," Angela cried quietly, holding the silver hairpin and whispering prayers under her breath, "Please, God, let the truth find them. Don't let her suffer for what she didn't do." Meanwhile, at the Henderson mansion, Ryan barely slept. The video kept replaying in his mind, scene after scene, word after word. Every time he saw Vanessa raise her hand against his mother, his stomach twisted. Every time he saw Angela shielding the old woman, his chest tightened with shame. He called Vanessa into his office one morning. She entered with her usual bright smile, pretending nothing was wrong. "Good morning, love," she said, walking closer. Ryan's face was pale and distant. "When were you going to tell me the truth?" Her smile faded. "What truth?" "The one about my mother," he said firmly. "The one about what really happened that day." Vanessa blinked, her voice shaking slightly. "Ryan, I told you everything. The maid." "Stop," he said, standing up. "I saw the video. I saw what you did." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For a moment, she looked stunned, then her face turned hard. "You believe her over me? That woman was nothing but a maid. She doesn't belong in our world." Ryan's voice broke as he replied, "That woman showed more humanity in one day than you have in your entire life." Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger. "You'll regret this. You think you can just throw me away after everything I've done for you?" He stared at her coldly. "Everything you've done? You almost killed my mother." Silence filled the room. Then Ryan pointed to the door. "Leave my house. Now." She stood frozen for a second, her pride wounded, her hands shaking. "You'll pay for this," she hissed, before walking out, slamming the door behind her. Ryan sat down heavily, burying his face in his hands. He had spent years chasing success, believing that money could protect him from pain. But now, surrounded by everything he owned, he felt smaller than ever. Later that evening, he went to his mother's room. Martha looked up, her eyes red from tears. When she saw the shame in his face, she already knew he had learned the truth. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered. He nodded slowly, his voice weak. "I did, Mom. I saw everything." Martha reached for his hand. "It's not too late, Ryan. That girl has a heart of gold. You judged her too quickly." He closed his eyes. "I don't know if she'll ever forgive me." "Then make her see your heart," Martha said softly, "the same way she showed you hers." The next morning, Ryan began his search. He called Linda first. "Do you know where she is?" "I don't, sir," Linda said. "But last I heard, she's been staying somewhere near East Point. Try the old Rose Motel." He grabbed his car keys and left the mansion without another word. The drive was long and quiet. As he reached the poorer side of Atlanta, the shiny buildings gave way to small houses and cracked roads. Finally, he found the motel, faded paint, broken sign, and a front desk run by a tired old man. "I'm looking for a woman named Angela Brown," Ryan said gently. "She stayed here a few nights ago." The man looked at him, squinting. "Room 9, but she might be out working." Ryan nodded and walked down the narrow hallway. The door to room 9 was half open. Inside, Angela was folding sheets on the bed. She turned quickly when she saw him. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was thick with memories, with pain, with things words couldn't carry. Ryan took a slow step forward. "Angela, I came to say I'm sorry." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move. "Sorry for what, Mr. Henderson? For calling me a liar? For throwing me out like trash?" He swallowed hard. "For not seeing the truth. For letting someone like Vanessa hurt you and my mother. You saved her life, and I treated you like a criminal." Angela turned away, her voice trembling. "Do you know what it's like to lose your job, your home, and your name in one day? People called me a thief. Even my landlord asked me to leave." Ryan's chest tightened. "I'll fix this. I promise." She shook her head. You can't fix pain with money. You can only fix it with truth. He looked down. Then let me start there. The truth is, I was blind. I thought power could protect me, but it only made me weak. I fired the wrong person, and I lost my peace. Angela turned back slowly, her eyes softer now. Why did you come here? Because I need your forgiveness, he said, and because I want to make things right for you and for my mother. She looked at him for a long moment. The rain had started again outside, tapping gently against the window. Forgiveness isn't something you buy, she said quietly. It's something you earn. Ryan nodded. Then I'll earn it, even if it takes the rest of my life. There was silence between them again, but this time, it wasn't painful. It was the silence that comes after truth has finally been spoken. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. This is a contract to start something new, a foundation in my mother's name. It'll help women like you, people who work quietly, who get blamed for things they never did. I want you to lead it with me. Angela stared at the paper in his hand. You want me to work with you? I want you to work beside me, he said softly. Not as my maid, but as someone who showed me what humanity really means. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. Ryan smiled faintly. You've always been strong, Angela. Stronger than anyone in that mansion. For the first time in weeks, she let out a small, shaky laugh. It wasn't full of joy yet, but it was real. She wiped her tears and said, Let's start with truth then. And for the first time since the storm began, both of them felt the weight begin to lift. The sky over Atlanta turned orange that evening, the kind of sunset that carried both peace and warning. At the Henderson mansion, silence rested over every room, but this time, it was not the silence of guilt, it was the calm that follows after storms. Ryan and Angela had come back to visit Mrs. Henderson, who was finally strong enough to sit in her favorite garden chair near the fountain. Martha smiled faintly as they walked toward her. You came back, she said softly, her voice weak but filled with joy. Angela knelt beside her, holding her hand gently. I couldn't leave you like that, ma'am, you mean too much to me. The old woman brushed her fingers against Angela's cheek. You saved my life twice, my child, once from her hands and once from my own sadness. Ryan stood nearby, his eyes filled with regret and calm. Mom, I've ended everything with Vanessa. I told the board I'm stepping away for a while. I want to fix what money can't fix. Martha nodded, pride showing in her tired smile. That's the man I raised, she said quietly. Angela looked around the garden, breathing in the scent of flowers. The air was peaceful, yet inside her heart, small memories of pain still lingered. She could not forget the night she left this house in the rain, carrying only a bag and her faith. But seeing the way Ryan had changed, how soft his eyes had become, she felt a quiet peace beginning to grow. Weeks passed slowly. Ryan worked closely with Angela on the Martha Hope Foundation. They visited nursing homes, hospitals, and community centers, meeting people who had faced hardship and silence for years. Angela spoke with them softly, her words simple but full of meaning. She reminded them that kindness was strength, not weakness, and that truth always found its way home. Ryan watched her often, not as a maid, but as a woman who carried light through darkness. He realized that his world of wealth had taught him less about life than this humble woman had in just a few months. But peace, as always, is tested. One cold night, as thunder rolled over the city, a black car stopped outside the mansion. The driver's door opened, and Vanessa stepped out. Her hair was wet from the rain, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Everything she had built had fallen apart. The company she owned was gone, her name was ruined, and her heart was burning with anger. Inside the mansion, Angela sat in the living room, sorting through foundation documents. Ryan was upstairs with his mother, reading the evening paper aloud. The rain beat gently against the windows, soft and steady. Then the doorbell rang, sharp and impatient. Angela rose, wiping her hands, and opened the door, her breath caught. "Vanessa?" she whispered. Vanessa pushed past her roughly. "Where is he?" she demanded. Angela stepped back. "Please, you can't be here, not after what you've done." Vanessa's voice shook as she pulled a small gun from her purse. Her hands trembled, her eyes red from crying. "You ruined my life, both of you. You think you can destroy me and live happily ever after?" Angela's heart raced, but her voice stayed calm. "Put that away, Vanessa, please. You still have a chance to walk away." Ryan heard the commotion and rushed down the stairs. "Vanessa, stop this," he said firmly. "You don't want to do this." She turned toward him, her tears mixing with anger. "You took everything from me, Ryan, everything." "You lost it yourself," he said softly, "because you let hate control you." She laughed bitterly, her voice breaking. "No. She took you from me. That maid took you away." Angela raised her hand slowly. "No one took him, Vanessa." Truth opened his eyes. "Not me." Vanessa's voice cracked as she shouted, "If I can't have peace, neither will you." At that moment, a weak voice came from the staircase. "Stop, please, don't do this," Mrs. Henderson called out, clutching the railing. Vanessa spun around, startled, and the gun pointed toward the sound. Ryan moved quickly toward her. "Vanessa!" "No!" he shouted. The gun fired, the sound echoing through the mansion like thunder. In one instant, Angela saw the bullet heading toward the stairs. Without thinking, she threw herself forward, pushing Mrs. Henderson out of the way. The bullet grazed Angela's arm, and she fell hard against the floor. "Angela!" Ryan cried, running to her side. Vanessa froze, her face pale as realization hit her. The gun slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Neighbors had heard the shot and called the police. Vanessa turned and ran out into the rain, her footsteps splashing in the puddles, her screams fading into the storm. Ryan held Angela close. "Stay with me, please," he said in a shaking voice. "You're going to be all right." Angela's breathing was shallow, but her eyes stayed open. "I told you," she whispered softly. "Truth always wins." Mrs. Henderson knelt beside them, tears running down her wrinkled face. "My child, you saved me again," she whispered. "You are heaven's answer to my prayers." The ambulance arrived minutes later. Ryan never left Angela's side as they carried her inside. He held her hand tightly, refusing to let go. At the hospital, he sat beside her through the night, watching the machines beep slowly, praying for her recovery. When Angela opened her eyes the next morning, sunlight spilled gently across her face. Ryan smiled through his tired eyes. "You scared me," he said quietly. Angela gave a faint smile. "I'm still here." Mrs. Henderson was wheeled in soon after, her eyes full of love. "You are family now, Angela," she said softly. "No one can ever take that from you." Months passed, and peace returned to their lives. The Martha Hope Foundation was launched in a public ceremony. Cameras flashed, people clapped, and Ryan stood on stage with his mother and Angela. His voice was steady as he spoke. "This foundation is not built from money," he said. "It's built from truth, from forgiveness, and from second chances. And it exists because of one woman who showed me what courage really means, Angela Brown." The crowd applauded, but Angela's tears fell quietly. She had never sought attention. She only wanted peace. Yet now, she had both. Later that night, after the event ended, Ryan found her outside under the soft garden lights. The air smelled of rain, and the stars had returned. "You could have died that night," he said gently. Angela smiled faintly. "I didn't die. I just lived again. Sometimes pain brings us back to life." He nodded slowly. "You taught me more than anyone ever has. Thank you for saving her, and for saving me." Angela looked up at the sky, her voice soft. "Maybe we saved each other." The mansion lights glowed warmly behind them, and for the first time in a long while, everything felt whole again. The house that once carried lies now carried peace, truth, and love. From that day on, the Martha Hope Foundation grew across America, helping thousands of caregivers and workers rebuild their lives. And Angela Brown, the maid once cast out in the rain, became a symbol of hope, courage, and truth that no storm could ever silence. Dear viewers, This story reminds us that sometimes the people we look down on are the ones sent to save us. Angela was just a maid in the eyes of many, yet her courage, truth, and kindness changed lives. She protected an old woman who had no strength to defend herself, and in doing so, she healed a broken family and taught a billionaire what real love means. This story teaches us that doing good may cost you pain, but the truth always wins, no matter how long it takes. It shows that forgiveness is not weakness, and that every act of kindness, no matter how small, can bring light to the darkest hearts. So, dear viewers, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and what lesson you learned from this emotional story. We love hearing your thoughts and reflections. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe,